little town in southeastern Vermont called Grafton. We're about three miles west of Grafton Village, out in the wilds,
Okay.
where there aren't too many people.
Okay.
And a lot of forest and a lot of mountains and just a few nice beaver ponds. Beaver-created wetlands are such a unique type of wetland. I think they need their own name. So I call beaver-created wetlands beaver flowages, or just plain flowages.
Okay.
And it's what's interesting is that beavers were gone for hundreds of years because of the fur trade.
Okay.
But where they dam in a landscape is predicated by a physics and survivability, I guess, as well, for the beavers. So they're essentially low energy areas, low gradient areas on small streams, where the dams can survive high flow events, and where a dam can also create enough of a wetland to make it economical to build.
Okay.
So beavers are damming in the exact same places today that they had dammed for 10,000 years between the retreat of the glaciers and the arrival of Europeans and the beginning of the fur trade about 400 years ago.
Wow.
So that's pretty neat. I mean, they're because they barely survived extinction in the last 100 years or so, they've gradually been reshaping the landscape.
Yeah.
A very small percentage of the landscape, very small, back to its ancient form. So that's pretty neat, and we've totally changed the forest structure. I just find nothing on the landscape more fascinating than these beaver habitats. They're incredibly rich, have a high density and diversity of life forms, you know, far more than the uplands. And then the mere fact that beavers are involved makes them incredibly dynamic. Yeah, I do some management. And I guess one could argue that's not entirely natural, but you can't have beavers without beaver food, and so I do work on the uplands to try to enhance their food supply. I do some cutting to try to encourage hardwood growth, and ideally aspen growth, which is their favorite tree species. It's not just a matter of doing what is absolutely necessary to protect our infrastructure from them. Clogged culverts being the biggest problem of all. That has to be done, and ideally we'll find a good way to do it without extirpating beavers constantly.
Yeah.
But if you just keep beavers around, I mean, it can't be overstated, the enormous beauty that's created for humans. I mean, this will refill your spiritual tanks every time you visit it. It's full of life, it's full of movement, it's full of color, it's full of song. Absolutely amazing. For example, these are sponges. During a massive flood, they'll absorb and hold a great deal of water and release it slowly over time. So when we have tremendous flood damage here at times, when you get a hurricane or just massive thunderstorms, and when all the damage that's created downstream is created during the peak of the flows, the very biggest flows, because so much of our landscape, including fields, is not holding the water. It's just running right off very quickly. And so the more we can slow down that water and hold it on the landscape, the more millions of dollars of damage, downstream damage, can be prevented. So if you have a whole series of beaver dams, it's an incredible hedge against large-scale flood damage. They're amazing microhabitats used by all kinds of animals. And we had a Canada geese nesting. They nest on beaver lodges all over the place, as do other waterfowl. What beavers do is they're constantly breaking it up and making trails and canals through it. It makes it much more complex, and I'm sure it benefits a host of native species. As a lot of people think you have to kill beavers, otherwise they're going to be everywhere. and it never ever works that way because of territorial behavior. So
Okay.
the population in any given habitat or territory is capped pretty quickly. Think about it. They've recolonized most of North America on their own. They're very slow-moving animals. But that persistent process of dispersal over the decades. From a very early age, I loved wildlife, and so I loved trying to improve wildlife habitat.
Okay.
And when the first beavers showed up here, I mean, it just was obvious to me that meant more water in the pond, a bigger habitat, and that was a good thing. So that's why, that basic process of doing something to guarantee, because the only other option is to kill all the beavers. You can't have clogged culverts and flooded roads. And you can't just kill some of the beavers, because it only takes one beaver to clog a culvert. So you have to extirpate this native keystone species from the whole area. That would be this whole property, in order to effectively protect that one culvert. And then the second new beavers came in, you'd have to kill them. So none of this would have developed without a simple flow device or beaver deceiver to protect a culvert. So that one beaver deceiver has led to, just on this one property, has led to millions and millions of dollars of value to society, and millions and millions of new life forms being created, probably every year. And that opportunity exists. There's probably 5 or 10 opportunities as good as this one in every town in North America, or most towns in North America. And so if we could get society to stop killing beavers and to simply protect the ecosystem or the infrastructure in a long-term economical manner, which means non-lethally, then real miracles could occur in our own human habitats throughout Europe and Eurasia and North America.
Yeah.
That's the key. We have to eliminate this conflict. But so it has enormous ecological potential.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, if you approach a problem in a long-term creative manner, it also becomes far more economical. Because when you just kill the beavers and leave, you still have a naked culvert. The next beaver that comes along clogs it again. You have to bring machinery in, clean it, kill the beavers. That cycle never ends.
Okay.
It's enormously inefficient and expensive. And so, I mean, where else in society can you make an investment, where you get thousands of percentage points on your return very quickly? Very quickly in a number of different manners. Yeah, they are the key, and I think of them as the most valuable animal of all.
Did you always?
And they're called the keystone species,
Yeah.
which, a keystone, you probably see a lot of those in Europe, a stone arch, not so many here, but you take that top stone out and all the other stones crumble to the ground, and they sort of represent different species that use these habitats.